Welcome back to the Elevate With Us podcast. I am super excited to introduce our guest today. Not only is he a real estate customer, but he's an amazing insurance agent. Welcome, Barney Stewart.
Thank you, Tanya.
Pleasure
to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here because I think our story is really interesting. You know, for the realtors out there, I met Barney on a realtor.com lead a million years ago.
Seems like it. 5 years ago.
5 years ago, right. Super, like right when I was starting real estate here, which is really interesting. And we went to look at property in 𝗥𝗢𝗚.
Right.
They were these like, they're not duplexes, but the villas. The villas and they're beautiful, right? They're super tall ceilings. It seemed like it'd be great. You were looking for a lock and go lifestyle, leaving Ponte Vedra Beach. And they were dark. They were like sad.
Way dark.
Yeah, and so you didn't like them. And I was like, oh, I'm going to look at these brand new townhomes that Toll Brothers just released. And you love them. And it was so serendipitous. It was not my intention. Just more fun to look at property with not alone.
But I don't think I told you this. The one that we wanted, the guy had put a deposit on.
Yes, I remember.
Expired the next day.
Oh, wow.
And he was not able to move. So we got the best unit in the entire neighborhood, thanks to you.
It's just so funny, you know. So to the realtors out there, just take a chance and invite people, and you just never know what'll happen. And then from that, we have forged a business relationship, which is so fun and cool. You know how you just never know, right? What will happen. So you sell insurance, which is much more than that. So tell me a little bit about your background in all of that.
I sure will. So it started years and years ago with actually when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a company called North Star Marketing, and I played basketball with a couple of guys, and there was a position open in their firm, and he goes, "Are you interested in being an insurance wholesaler?" I said, "Sure."
And you hadn't done insurance? Like, you hadn't done it before?
Oh, no, never.
And what were you doing before that?
I was in real estate with 𝗕𝗏𝗄 company out of Dallas. They don't have a big presence in Florida. But completely unrelated.
Interesting.
And you know, no experience, wholesaling, meaning that we would call on financial advisors, health insurance agents, people like that, and we represented a product portfolio.
Okay.
Within 3 years, I was the top producer in the company and got to speak at our national convention in front of 2,000 or 3,000
Amazing.
people. So I'm like, I might be good at this.
Probably. I mean, it sounds like it, you know? Yeah, absolutely.
And what's unusual about insurance, anyone that does it or owns it, is it's an intangible. I mean, you can't touch it, taste it, try it on. You can't test drive it. It's an intangible.
I've never thought of it like that, but you're right. It is not like a piece of paper.
No, there was my first wife, when she asked me what I did for a living, and I kind of described it to her. She goes, "Oh, you sell promises."
Yes.
And I'm like, that's exactly what we do.
It is a promise. People, when they complain about insurance, because people love to complain about it, I go, you're not going to complain about it when you need it.
And you're not going to complain about it if it's done the right way, and your expectations are fulfilled. That makes all the difference in the world.
For sure. So you've been in the industry in Florida for about 23 years.
23 years, yes.
And you're now with Thomas Baker.
Correct.
Thompson Baker.
Thompson Baker out of St. Augustine. They're a boutique firm. They're an advisory firm, which I embrace, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, I want to know what that means.
Well, it just means that when people go to see, for example, an accountant or a financial advisor, to help them learn how to invest their money. They don't invest their money until they have an understanding of their risk tolerance, of their timeline, of the purpose of this money. And in the property and casualty industry, it's been heavily commoditized, in my opinion, over the last 20 years. And no one asks those questions. Like, how long are you going to own this house? What's the purpose going to be? Is it going to be a short-term rental? Are you going to live in it for a long period of time? How's your risk management philosophy? I take the same approach that I took with the financial advisors, attorneys, and CPAs that we worked with, and I apply it to property and casualty. The funny thing is, people will sometimes respond, "Why are you asking me so many questions?" My last agent didn't.
Right.
And they know exactly what they're buying, why they're buying it, what the purpose is. It's affordable, it's reasonable, it meets their expectations. So I have also been involved in well over 1,000 claims in my career. And that's Judgment Day. That's when that promise is either kept or not kept. And I've been very fortunate that very few people were disappointed that something unfortunate happens to their home and it pans out exactly to their expectations. That's the goal.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is that really insurance is a puzzle.
little bit.
And you've got to put it together in a way that fits for that customer.
Correct.
So understanding maybe, maybe I am cash poor, so I would rather pay more per month for a policy so I have less of a deductible.
Exactly.
Versus somebody else might have something like that. So what is your experience in that realm? Like I would hope, realtors, that you have at least 3 insurance agents that you recommend, just like mortgage people, just like inspectors, everything, so that they can make a choice and interview someone. But they're probably not asking questions. They're just, what is the cost? What is the cost? You're cheapest, I go with you. And they might be missing out on coverage or paying too high deductible and have no idea.
Well, I was telling you a little bit earlier, a story that just happened yesterday with a friend of mine, but also a potential client who's buying a home in 𝗤𝗏𝗃 Country Club, which is
at a nice price
spectacular,
point.
At a very, very nice price point. And the proposal he received from a very reputable firm was not anything close to what he would prefer from a risk management standpoint.
Because they didn't ask any questions.
They didn't ask any questions. In fact, they had the roof type wrong. They had the roof year wrong. There was a lot of data on there. In fact, on most insurance applications, there's probably between 20 and 40 questions that have to be answered, both about the house and about the preferences of the owner of that house.
Wow.
And if those questions aren't being asked, they're being answered for you. So when that email comes with the e-sign, which we all pay very close attention to and read everything.
No one just goes through and signs it. You read every line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that person signs it, and then there's a discrepancy down the road, or they get non-renewed, or the claim is denied. They'll go to the agent. Why didn't you tell me that? And the insurance company will say, is this your signature? And you're signing off that all those statements are true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. And so there can be disclosure issues, there can be misrepresentations, there can be all kinds of different things that come out of the wash. And at the end of the day, what you want to stay away from, and I encourage you to stay away from, is when a insurance quote arrives and there's been no dialogue with the customer whatsoever. The customer believes and truly believes that insurance is a commodity, that all 3 of these things are going to do the same thing. And in fact, we'll see variations, for example, just in the reconstruction replacement cost of the house, which the lender needs.
Sure.
I was working with a client day before yesterday, and they had replacement costs ranging from $600,000 to $400,000. Well, how can that be?
That's significant.
That's significant.
Yeah.
It's a 50% variance.
Yeah.
In the amount of coverage, and the customer, if he assumes, we know what happens when you assume, that these are all the same, they're going to choose the least expensive one.
Of course.
And now the challenge with that is over the last 5 years in Florida, the insurance prices have spiked.
A lot.
Significantly.
I mean, a lot.
Well, due to 5 very rational things. Number one is the number of people moving here.
Correct.
Creates higher demand.
So supply and demand.
Supply and demand. It's been great for realtors. You remember the days where you had 10 offers on the house and all. Anyway, so it's been a wonderful run. But at the same time, we've had construction costs rise substantially.
Right. So those 2 factors are 2 major factors affecting
labor,
insurance.
Material availability. Right. I mean, just to put a metal roof on your house compared to what it was 5 years ago is dramatic. We've had the most expensive hurricane in the history of Florida, which was Hurricane Ian, which decimated Southwest Florida. I got the number the other day. It was $115 billion paid out in insurance claims for
from that hurricane.
That one hurricane. And where people in Northeast Florida get confused is we didn't experience that.
Right.
So their question is, how come that affects us? We didn't do anything. I didn't file a claim. Why does that affect us? Then the third thing and the biggest thing is litigation. We have more litigation in Florida than any other state in the country.
By a lot. I mean, we're not talking about by like 1%, by like hundreds of percentages.
So I pulled for you the last 4 years of data.
Okay.
So in Florida, we average about 8% of all the homeowners' claims throughout the United States. So, all 50 states, 8%.
Okay.
In 2019, we had 81% of the litigation nationwide. In 2016, we had 65% of the litigation nationwide.
Jeez.
And it's because we have a very unique situation where people feel entitled and incentivized to pursue legal counsel. You can see it on the billboards. You can see it on all the ads.
Well, they knock on your door,
They knock on your door, and people believe, honestly, that it's the correct thing to do. And what they don't understand is even if the claim is denied, there's still $100,000 in legal fees that get paid by their insurance company.
Oh, wow. So what you're saying is that if they do litigation against their insurance company to get a new roof, let's say, and it's denied, people are still making money.
Well, and they're still filing claims. So
Right.
that claim will appear on their when they buy their next house, it'll appear on their clue report that they filed a claim with no money paid out. And some people say, well, why does that count against me? I said, well, nobody knows why the money wasn't paid out. You had damage to your premises. You pursued it. It could have been denied. It could have been ineligible. It could have been fraudulent. I mean, it could have been a number of things.
Sure.
Just because you had no money paid out does not mean that the claim didn't occur and the damage didn't occur.
How long do those claims stay with you?
Up to 5 years.
Wow.
And the claims now follow the individual. So
Okay.
if you own a home in New York and you move to Florida and you're trying to buy a house, that New York claim will follow you to
Florida.
So when these quotes are sent out by agencies, they're not running these clue reports because you have to have permission to run a clue report. I traditionally...
Clue, like CLUE?
CLUE is what it's referred to as.
Okay.
So we use something called insurance scores.
Okay.
And we use clue reports.
Okay.
Lenders use credit.
So it's
credit
like
scores.
it's my insurance credit score?
Somewhat. Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't get but it can change things dramatically.
Oh, so you could have like what we would call like an A+ borrower, like an A+ person, and then you run Clue and you're like, just kidding.
My customer yesterday, I had a plan, and this particular insurer doesn't run the Clue report to the end. I ran the Clue report. He's ineligible.
Because of claims?
Well, no, because he owns another home that's insured, and he's buying this home, which is insured, and the insurance companies feel like there could be a cash flow issue and that there may be a tendency for him to utilize insurance more frequently. And so
it's based on behavior.
Negative impact on the insurance scores.
Fascinating.
I historically will not send a proposal until that insurance score is run.
Okay.
Because I want that customer to be well informed of what I'm doing, why we're doing it, and I want to explain to them the Clue report and loss history process so that when we do run it and they get it and they've got it and they can make a decision, it's accurate, it's correct, it's appropriate.
Wow. So if your Clue score is bad, it could cause your policy to be more expensive?
Yes, it can.
Or less favorable. Less favorable. It could change that.
It can make you ineligible
for insurance. With like anyone?
Well, almost every company runs insurance scores. Now they use all different criteria, and we're not always aware of what that criteria is. But we do see the net effect of how that criteria affects the result. Okay. So why would the customer say, okay, I want to buy that policy, and then I have to call them back 2 hours later and say, you can't have it. Now we're starting from scratch again, and their taste in their mouth is just a little tainted.
Well, everybody wants what they can't have. Right. I mean, that's just but I did want that.
Right.
Well, you can't now. No one likes to have things taken away.
Well, and it affects auto insurance as well. If you do not have a good credit score, then insurers will assume that you're not a good.
You're not responsible. You're more
because
risky.
You're not financially responsible in your day-to-day affairs. So
right.
It all makes sense and it all correlates. Most customers and consumers aren't aware that those are part of the insuring process.
So let's talk about some misbeliefs or things that are out there in the real estate field, like that agents out there will see. Like they'll say, this house is uninsurable because it has a 15-year roof, or the water heater's original, you're not going to be able to get insurance. And I know it's not a one-stop shop. What's your advice on that? Like, how does a listing agent or a buyer's agent kind of work through that scenario when they know from the seller's property disclosure that those things are older?
Well, first off, I'm delighted as always to go into the field over coffee, drinks, cocktails, lunch, whatever, and make sure realtors are as informed as they would like to be.
I love that, as they would like to be.
Because
some don't want to know anything.
Some don't want to know anything.
Right.
Which is fine,
yeah.
and I respect that. But I want them to know as much as they want to know. Second of all, insuring is a process. It's not an email. So
right.
if I just had a client buy 2 homes in San Marco. All right, she paid cash for both. She's moving from California, and both of these homes were going to get new roofs. They were going to be vacant for up to 90 days, and she was going to redo the plumbing from the home all the way to the city service.
Got it.
City county service. Well, I can't insure her the traditional way out of the gate because you have to occupy the home within 30 days if you buy a traditional homeowner's policy.
Really? I did not know that.
And if they go out to inspect the premises and they see the yard all dug up, she will get dropped.
Wow.
Well, on her next application for insurance, they're going to ask, have you ever been canceled or non-renewed? Now she has to answer.
Say yes.
Yes. So we explain a process. So we're going to do it this way, which will allow for this.
Okay.
And then in 90 days or whenever, then this, I'll stay in touch with her roofer. I'll stay in touch with her realtor and say, okay, hey, they closed. I need a copy of the roof permits. The realtor's phenomenally responsive. She and I are on the same page.
Right.
So I explained to her, this is the process that we're going to go through.
Sure.
For this young lady.
Amazing.
And it works.
Right.
She knows the expectations. The buyer knows the expectations.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. If somebody's going to buy a home, say in San Marco or Riverside, and they're going to have to renovate it for 6 months before they move in and they have a lender, that's going to be a problem because we can't get necessarily the lender the correct policy that they want. So we might contact the lender and say, hey, here's the situation. Is this going to be acceptable?
Sure.
So it is often a process. Now, if it's a brand new construction, piece of cake.
Super simple, right?
Super simple, but that's not the real world. All right. So with the realtors that are out there, here's the 5 or 6 big red flags. All right. Roof age. Roof age is huge.
So do you think that's the biggest factor affecting insurance?
I think it's the biggest factor affecting insurance for 2 reasons. Number one is, in the past, where where we were getting all these different offers, the listing agent typically wasn't wanting to tell the customer that you got to replace your roof.
Yeah, because it didn't matter anymore.
Didn't matter.
They were buying it no matter what.
They were buying it no matter
there
what.
was nothing else to buy.
Exactly. Nowadays, I would encourage the listing agent, if that roof is 12 years old, that is going to be heavily scrutinized. And it doesn't mean that we can't insure it.
See, I think that right there is the problem, is that agents will call you if you're a listing agent and say, hey, you're going to have the roof replaced because it's uninsurable.
Well, I'll give them a couple of scenarios and then a solution. So if you're going to list it and you know you're going to have to place the roof, is there a different price point you should consider listing it for?
Right.
It's markedly more valuable with a new roof. So does that have impact on the profitability? B, if you want to replace the roof, we have roofers that will do it and get paid as part of the settlement process.
Right, which is really nice. And a lot of people don't know that the title company will hold money in escrow, and then everyone knows, the insurance company knows, the permits are pulled, and then they can issue a policy within like 30 days or whatever.
Exactly.
Showing proof of the roof being replaced.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that I think most realtors may not know and most consumers don't know is every home that's insured gets inspected by the insurance company after the client moves in.
Oh.
So you can have a house that on paper is insurable, that when they come and they look at the roof, they may deem it unacceptable. So we want to do get as much information up front. There's a common misnomer out there that you shouldn't send your general inspection to your insurance advisor. I disagree. I want to see.
I've never even thought about it.
I want to see it. Like with this client we were talking to yesterday, he sent me his entire inspection.
I mean, I don't want to send it to the lender.
Well, they don't really need it.
Right, but I don't even know if I've really been asked, and if I have, I don't remember. But I don't see why it would be a problem.
Well, some people have told me that they've been told they shouldn't. Now, we got to remember who those inspections are done for. A general inspection is done for the eyes of the buyer.
Correct.
They're teaching them to uncover.
I mean, they're looking for
everything.
problems.
They're looking for problems.
They're being paid to find something wrong.
Okay, we don't want that information. We're not going to send that information to an insurance company. We're going to use a 4-point and a wind mitigation, which most people know what that is. The 4-point looks dramatically different than the general inspection. However, on a $1.7 million house, as an example, they're going to go out, and I need to know, are they going to use a drone? Are they going to climb up on the roof? What's the process going to be? Sure. Because, and I have to tell the customer, hey, there's a chance that this may not be acceptable. You may have to put a new roof on it. But it's a process. It can't be scrutinized. So if you have I would say 12 years or older, you have to be prepared for that.
So let's talk about the wind mit and the 4-point, because I think everyone assumes every house needs one, and they assume that it's going to make their insurance better, better.
Cheaper, yeah.
So is there like a rule of thumb that if it's this many years old, you should get one, or should just, unless you're buying a brand new construction, you should always get one?
I would say that if you read a wind mitigation inspection, there's a date on it. It's March of 2002. That's when the building code changed. So any home built after March of 2002 has default credits.
Really?
Yep. And
okay.
It's single wraps on the hurricane. It's a clip credit.
Interesting.
It's an FBC credit. So we don't need a wind mitigation inspection for any home that's built after 2002. Now, do we desire one? Well, the wind mitigation can make a difference between 20 to 40% of the premium. And if a house has a new roof, it could be beneficial to have one, because the prior owner may not have had hurricane clips, and those hurricane clips were installed.
Even if it was after 2002 build?
It can be beneficial. If it's brand new construction, like within 5 years, not necessary. The 4-point is inherently important really for any house that's more than 15, 20 years old, because they're going to want to see updates to the water heater. By the way, the roof was the first thing we were talking about.
Yeah,
the water heater is the next big one.
Huge right now.
Wind and water are our worst enemies in Florida. We don't like water coming in from the outside, and we don't like water coming from the water heater. So 15 years, I can tell you that's a pretty hard and fast rule.
But only on standard water heaters. On
tankless.
Tankless as well?
Tankless doesn't matter.
Even if they're installed outside the house?
Doesn't matter.
Really?
Tankless is awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
So water heaters, 15 years. And then with electrical, this is not such a big deal, but we still see a lot of homes in San Marco, Riverside, and historic areas that still have cloth wire. They still have aluminum wiring. They still have double tap breakers. They still have that stuff. So my rule of thumb is, if the second a client commits to a house, send it to me.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this Elevate with Us podcast.